Hello and welcome to the Karpfucius Says Podcast, the show where we talk about anything and everything related to living a more purposeful and empowered life. I am your host, Michael Karp, aka Karpfucius. Alright, welcome to episode number 9 of the Karpfucius Says Podcast. In the last episode, I got vulnerable with you guys. I talked about how I'd been feeling over the last few weeks here in Costa Rica and how I'd been dealing with some of those emotions, how I'd been dealing with this pressure to be and feel happy all the time. And I think it was, solid episode. I'm happy with that episode. In this episode, we are talking about the first and second most important things you could ever do in your life. And these things are related to your desires and they're related to the things that you really want in your life. So without further ado, let's dive straight into them. Okay, the first one is start. The first most important thing you could ever do when it comes to your desires and when it comes to the things that you want in life, the things that you really want in life, is to start. Is to get started. To get started as soon as possible. If you can get started right now, then that is the best time. There is no better time to make a start than the present moment. There is no way to fulfill a desire or to achieve something you want to achieve if you don't begin. It's the one thing that every single person who has ever fulfilled a desire or done something they really wanted to do in their life has done. They started. And it's incredibly underrated because it's so simple. You know, everybody talks about mindset techniques. They talk about success principles. They talk about like all these different things, but I think the vast majority of people don't do the first most important thing, which is to actually start doing what they want to do. People are talking about it, and sometimes they talk about it with their friends, they talk about it with their family. They're like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. But then the days, the weeks, the months, and the years go by, and they never actually get started. And it never happens. Because it can't happen unless you start. And then there's the other group of people who aren't talking about what they want. You know, it's just in their mind, it's just in their own internal dialogue. But it's the exact same thing. They have these desires. Maybe they're vague, right? But at least they're there. They know, okay, this is, I'd like to move in this direction. But they haven't gotten started either. They haven't taken that first, really most important step. It is literally the most important thing you could ever do when it comes to your desires and when it comes to what you want. You have to get started. There really is no way around this. You have to begin. And you don't have to begin super big. In fact, I think it's better to begin and start off relatively small. Start off with something easy. Start off with the minimum viable action you can take, right? MVA, minimum viable action. I'm pretty sure James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, his book, but it's basically getting started with the absolute easiest thing you can do and start building that into a habit. Because when it becomes a habit, it's automatic. You've taken the most important step, you've gotten started with something easy, with something relatively effortless, and which doesn't take a lot of your energy or maybe your time or whatever resistance you have. It doesn't take a lot, right? It's not something that involves getting super far outside of your comfort zone. It's not something that involves having to overcome a lot of fear. It's not something that involves having to overcome any doubt or anything like that, whatever might be holding you back. It's easy, it's low resistance, and it gets the ball rolling. If you imagine a snowball on top of a hill, right? It starts off super small, just a small little ball, right? That is the metaphor for the first action. Just this tiny ball at the top of the hill. And then as you take that very first little action, the ball starts rolling. As it starts rolling, it gets bigger, right? And it's automatic. It's going, it's rolling down the hill. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the momentum is building. And then it gets to a point where you can't even stop it because you've built up so much momentum towards your desires that you are automatically flowing towards them. But the key is that you got started. You started the ball rolling. So that's the first one. All right. The first one, the absolute most important thing is to get started on your goals, your dreams, your desires, whatever it is that you want in life. It may seem small, especially if you are taking a small action, but it really is the biggest thing you could possibly do, right? Like, I've gotten started on so many things that I wasn't truly, like, in quotes, ready to do, right? Like, for example, with this podcast, like, as soon as I had the inspiration, I got started. I figured out, okay, what app can I record my podcast on? What mic can I use? Okay, I had a mic lying around. Perfect. I got a mic. And what can I talk about? Well, let me just write out some ideas and I'll just talk about whatever, like, I'll just talk about one of these ideas, right? And I didn't worry too much about where I'm going to post it or like what people will think about it or like anything like that. I just knew it was super important for me to get started in that moment. And I wasn't necessarily ready to be a super consistent podcaster yet, right? Like, I did 7 episodes, right? Within about a month, right? Maybe even less than a month. But then I took like 2-3 months off because I just wasn't ready to be super consistent with it yet. But I got started and like, I got the momentum going. Even though I technically stopped the momentum, it's more of a pause, right? I put a pause on it. And then now that I'm ready to start podcasting again consistently, it's easy for me to get that ball going again because I got started a few months ago, right? If I were to only get started now, I would have to build up the momentum that I'd already built a few months ago. So getting started is the key. When it came to me achieving my dream of moving to Southeast Asia, again, I got started as soon as I left college. I started learning about online business. How could I build an online business? How could I start traveling? How could I like get myself like into a location independent lifestyle? And I just got the ball rolling. You know, it's simple, right? It's simple to explain and to talk about. But it really is the absolute most important thing you could ever do. Like, you got to get started. So the first thing I would say is if you have some goals, some dreams, some desires, some wants that you've been thinking about for a long time, but you haven't gotten started on them, ask yourself, what is the absolute easiest action I could take to get the ball rolling? What is something so simple that it's an absolute no-brainer and something that I could even do right now? Something so easy that you don't even really have to think about it. And then take that action. Do the most important thing you could ever do in the whole journey. Get started. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2, the second most important thing you could ever do when it comes to your desires and when it comes to the things that you want in life is to keep going. The second most important thing you could ever do is to just keep going. Get started, keep going, and don't stop. And just like I said before, like, just because you technically stop for a period of time doesn't mean you stopped completely. It's more of a pause, right? So I've put a pause on lots of things many times. Like, for example, my Instagram account, right? Like, I've put a pause on my posting on that at least 3 times, you know? And like, I was posting for months, and then I just stopped because of whatever reason. Like, there were times where I felt like I was out of alignment with my own advice and I needed to go and get myself back into alignment in my own life, right? It just didn't feel right for me to be posting about this stuff because I'd gotten to a point where I felt like I wasn't living it myself. So I paused, right? But when I felt back into alignment with it, I came back, right? And I'd already built that momentum and I'd already had some consistency with it. So the key is to just keep going, right? Get started and then be consistent as much as you possibly can. If you have to put a pause on it, then that's okay. But at least you are doing the 2 most important things. And one of the concepts that has really helped me and has helped me through a lot of challenges when it comes to my goals and my dreams and all that is persistence. This is one of the success principles from Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. And he literally says in there, if you persist, you will win, right? So when I think, you know, okay, some of my desires and goals have taken a long time for me to accomplish. They've taken a long time to manifest, and long is relative, right? Longer than I thought they would. But I persist. Like, that's just what I do. It's in my nature. My goals and my dreams are important enough to me that, like, I'm going to keep going until I accomplish them. It almost doesn't matter how long it takes because I'm going to keep going, right? I'm going to persist. Like, there's nothing that's going to stop me from continuing until I achieve what I want to achieve, right? For example, when I got back from Asia, I went to Texas to visit my parents. And technically that was only supposed to be a couple months, right, of me staying there. And then I was going to go back to Asia, right? Because I want to travel, I want to live abroad. And, you know, that's my dream life right now. But things happened and that wasn't what was meant to happen, right? I went through this whole healing journey with my body, which I mentioned in the last episode. And there were periods where there was a long period, like a year and a half or more, where I couldn't even work, right? And I had to persist through all of this. Like, my goal wasn't just to, like, heal my body. My goal was to get back to Asia and get back to this life that I love, or get back to traveling and get back to living abroad and get back to the freedom that I'd worked so hard to finally accomplish. And it didn't matter how hard that experience was, because I'd already set up in my mind that I'm going to persist through anything in order to get what I want in life, in order to be who I want to be in life, in order to live the way I want to live in my daily life, because it's that important to me. So if we keep it super simple and we just focus on those 2 things, get started and keep going, everything else that we need to learn, everything else that we need to experience will come to us. If we don't get started and we don't keep going, then none of that will happen. So these are literally the most important things we could ever do when it comes to our goals, our desires, our dreams, and things of that nature, right? We have to get started because you have to get the ball rolling, and you have to keep going so you can persist long enough to give yourself a chance to achieve what you want to achieve. Those are the two biggest mistakes people ever make, is that they don't get started, or sometimes they get started and then they stop. But Those are really the only two ways not to achieve what you want in life. Bob Proctor said the only way to fail is to give up. Other than that, there is no way to fail. All you gotta do is keep going and you will succeed. That's the key. Get started and keep going and you will succeed at what you want to succeed at in your life. All right. I hope this episode was useful and empowering for you. When you look at it this way, it really is pretty simple. Just get started and persist through anything and you will accomplish what you want to accomplish in your life. All right. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. By the way, my new book, The Purpose Discovery System, is out now. This book is designed to help you find your life purpose, define it with clarity, and make a plan to follow it, even if you are totally lost right now and have no clue what to do with your life. This book walks you through the exact 5-step process that I used to find my life purpose. Now, it took me 5 years to figure out what my purpose was, and then another 3 years to actually start living it. I do not want it to take that long for you. By following the steps in this book, you will shortcut your time to finally figure out who you really are, what you really want, and where you want your life to go. All right. So if you want to get your copy, go ahead and click the link in the show notes or click the link in the podcast description.